Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the most absolutely inconsistent franchise mode series in the history of this channel. I'm not going to talk about the whole to-do about the inconsistencies of it. I mean, hey, we've talked about that on, well, plenty of occasions now at this point, and I don't really think I have to explain to anybody that, playing NHL 25 in May isn't exactly, everyone's most favorite thing to do, right? I don't think that's really going to be all that surprising or much of a revelation. So, hey, we'll just mention that we're going to get another season in the books here and see what this team is capable of. But I also want to use this as, well, a nice little opportunity to be able to talk about the playoffs mainly, right? Because, I kind of mentioned it. NHL 25-wise, game's been out for a while. It's been a really inconsistent game, I would say, in terms of the quality of it. Like some elements of this game, particularly this game mode, pretty good. Some other elements of it, well, maybe not so hot, right? And that's kind of been the theme with NHL games is, well, a lot of times it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So, we do the best that we can, basically. And that's all you can do with a game like this. You just got to either make the best of it for what they serve you, or it's like, all right, well, shit, let's go play something else. And it's been a decent amount of that. Enjoying it for what it is, but also like, let's go play something else. Do we have anybody? I don't think we have to even automatically sign anybody anymore. We should be fine. I was going to say, this video also really serves as a way for me to be like, hey, the Stanley Cup playoffs are still sick, which, that's been where the majority of, my enjoyment of hockey has been for the last little bit here, is just that idea. And there we go. I was looking for the expiry status. I swear my eyes were just zoning out. We're just going to sign this dude because the cap doesn't even matter. He actually won't accept any more than what we're offering him. No, he would. Okay, there we go. See, case in point, there's some weird delays in the menus sometimes. There's just a lot of weird stuff about this game. Good ideas, maybe not always the best execution when it comes to this video game. But anyway, the playoffs have been sick. So even though at times I'm not chomping at the bit to play NHL 25 franchise mode compared to other games, whether they be more modern games or even older games. If you've been watching on the Twitch side of things, we've been playing a lot of NFL Head Coach 09, which will be uploaded to the second channel at some point. It's just one of those things that the playoffs, though, have just been really, really good. And I think it's primarily because, again, me being a neutral, I put out that video talking about who I thought was going to win versus who I'm actively rooting for in each individual series, stuff like that. I put out that video and mixed results. Mixed results so far. How many scouting contracts? Wow, we actually had a lot of scouting contract space. Okay, cool. Mixed results to the who I thought was going to win side of that prediction video, but honestly, that's what makes the playoffs that much better, right? Is the fact that things haven't exactly gone as expected, right? I mean, you talk about the semifinal rounds that we just got through now in the middle of May 2025, and you have Dallas beating Winnipeg in 6 games, and maybe you could say that what for Winnipeg, Connor Hellebuck, he hasn't always been that great in the playoffs. I don't think anybody could have predicted that Connor Hellebuck was going to struggle this badly. He's not the sole reason that the Jets lost, but he is probably the biggest reason as to why the Jets lost, which is crazy given what they were able to do in the regular season, right? That's nuts. And then on the flip side, you have Dallas. Holy, I predicted Dallas to lose in the first round because I wasn't sure of their depth, right? Man, you're without Miro Heiskanen, you're without Jason Robertson. What are you actually going to be able to do? And the answer was survive Colorado in 7 and then beat Winnipeg in 6 games. I mean, granted, it's the Final Four, right? So you're going to say that all of these teams are legit, and they are. But Dallas especially, like, this really feels like it should be their year. But then they're taking on Edmonton, who, of course, went to the Cup final. Wrong button. Of course, went to the Cup final last year. And very similar, right? Because 2023, you had Florida go to the Cup final, lose to Vegas. The next year, they go back, and they win it. Edmonton could very well be on that same trajectory, right? And they've looked really freaking good so far, man. Better than I thought they would look. I mean, they took care of the Kings in freaking 6 games, beat them in 4 straight. Dispatching Vegas in 5 is impressive. They are getting more out of some of that, potentially suspect depth than I think. Certainly more than I thought they would get out of that depth, which has been probably their biggest issue, right? Is like, okay, if the key players aren't contributing, do they have any depth whatsoever? It's kind of the inverse of the Leafs, where it's like, okay, the depth is contributing, but the stars, the stars of the team are not. Very, very similar. Like I said, pretty much the inverse of that. So, I mean, Winnipeg and Dallas, like, dude, as a neutral, like, I'm looking forward to that regardless, right? I mean, in my lifetime, we've seen Dallas go to, well, technically 2 Stanley Cup finals now, right? Because the bubble, which is weird and doesn't even feel like the bubble period existed or anything like that, but it did. And, of course, Edmonton, made it last year and then lost in the 2006 Cup final as well. Both of these teams, the expectation is there of like, man, anything short of winning the Cup is going to feel like failure because they are more than capable of winning the Stanley Cup this year. And in terms of like, oh man, who do I think is going to be the team to get it done? Like, dude, I don't know. But again, that's kind of the fun of it, right? Is just getting to watch this series. Like, I don't have to sit there on behalf of my, favorite team or whatever and be frustrated at the lack of consistency when it comes to officiating or the DOPS doing nothing. I can just be like, just enjoy the hockey for what it is, basically, which is really, really nice. So very much looking forward to the West Final. And then the East Final is a rematch from last year, right? Like Carolina just walking over the competition so far in New Jersey and Washington. New Jersey was to be expected, right? Like I thought that could have been a sweep, really. Am I allowed to train up this guy even though I literally just signed him? No, that's okay. New Jersey, though, again, like without Jack Hughes, a lot of the injuries that they had, it's like, oh, this probably isn't going to go too well for you, is it? And it didn't. It didn't. Washington, though, I don't want to say they got found out as pretenders, but they did run into a buzzsaw of a team that has been a contender consistently. And heading into this season, a lot of people, I don't really think, expected much out of Washington, right? And why would you? They've been on the decline for a couple of years now. Ovi's that much older, everything like that. But then to have the run that they did, it kind of felt similar. Now, granted, there are differences, but it felt somewhat similar to that idea of, when the Bruins set the record for the best regular season of all time and then crashed and burned in the playoffs, except Washington won a round. Helps to not run into Florida, I suppose. But very, very similar to that feeling of just like, going down swinging one more time, basically, and trying to make the most of it. But then, you just kind of get smacked with the reality of like, yeah, but you're not that top contender anymore. You're not the big dog anymore. It's like you're old, basically, is what it comes down to when your time has passed. That's what it felt like for Carolina. So and then, of course, we'll talk about Toronto in a minute because I have the most to say about that. But the idea of Carolina versus Florida, again, it's either Florida makes it to their 3rd straight Stanley Cup final, which is just insane. Again, it's genuinely insane. Or Carolina, God forbid they freaking don't win another game in the conference final. Good Lord. or Carolina finally breaks through and lives up to their potential and makes it back to the Cup final, because they have been, I mean, God, it's been, we're a couple years removed now from like Steve Dangle making videos where he's like, I feel like I pick Carolina every year. Like, it has been that long that people have been waiting for Carolina to break through, and then they just hit a wall in the Eastern Conference final, especially the last couple of years, right? So it's exciting from that perspective to see if Carolina can push through. And honestly, for Florida, like, it's just one of those things where it's like, first and foremost, like, yes, I'm happy. Like, the Bruins are going to get, an extra first-round pick, or they're going to get a first-round pick instead of a second for the Brad Marchand trade, which, again, a lot of people at the time were like, oh, my God, that's so low for Brad Marchand. If he was a Bruin, he wasn't going to play the rest of the year, more than likely, right? Like, he was hurt when he was traded, and for the Bruins, it made perfect sense to just let him go to where he wanted to go. Helps you with the tank. They now have the 7th overall pick in the upcoming draft, which, yeah, I know the idea of like, oh shit, is Don Sweeney really going to know what to do with that pick? Time will tell. But I would much rather have a first-round pick than a second, right? That's just the way that works. Let's work on this guy's skating here. And for Florida too, what still sticks with me is the fact that, like, man, this is the Florida Panthers, a team that for the vast majority of their history have been garbage, right? Just absolutely garbage. There's no other way to put it. And now, under the tenure of Bill Zito, and it's funny because, again, I used to have a podcast called the Tukey's Take Podcast where I talked about NHL, the NHL a lot. And then it got very annoying to talk about the NHL because of, freaking lawsuits left and right, feeling like, the Department of Player Safety doesn't care about player safety. There was a lot of stuff like that, right? So this year took the season off. We'll see what happens heading into next year. Because I do miss talking about hockey, which is why I'm kind of using this right now as an outlet to do that. But it's that idea of, oh my God, your puck skills. God, I gotta stop training up the skating. This guy's puck skills are really, it's Magnus. He was our first pick, basically. But yeah, we need to work on that skill training, buddy. It's just the idea that the Florida Panthers, right? Like the early days of Bill Zito getting hired, obviously, doing the podcast with a different co-host, but in the early days, getting to see the moves that Bill Zito was making, and it's like, oh, this guy like has a definitive plan. You could see the pieces falling into place, and the guy's built a damn juggernaut. Again, had they not been so banged up, and you could say that about numerous teams that have made it to the Eastern, or to the Stanley Cup final in the past, but in this case, the Eastern Conference final with Florida, had they not been so banged up in 2023, they might have beaten Vegas. You could say that again about a lot of teams. They win the Cup last year. Man, they could win the whole thing again. And it's still that effect of like, holy hell, this is the Florida Panthers that have been built just perfectly for playoff hockey. Look, the dirtiness aspect of it, it's like, man, that's what the NHL wants. The NHL wants the playoffs to be that. And so the Florida Panthers are the best at that right now, right? It's the same thing. Like I've mentioned it before at the 2011 Stanley Cup final with the Bruins and winning the Cup over Vancouver. I don't fool myself into thinking that the Bruins, didn't play that similar type of style. They did, and they were the best at it. And that's just kind of the way the freaking playoffs work, man. So for Florida, it's just crazy to see them go on this run. I thought they'd be out of gas, to be honest. I really thought they were likely to be too tired. There was major questions about Matthew Tkachuk heading into the playoffs. There's still questions about his health now. Like, whenever their season ends, it's going to come out that he was playing with a fucking severed spinal cord or some shit. Which, hockey players in the playoffs, right? Which I still never quite did understand that. I still don't. The idea of like, is Matthew Tkachuk at 25% or 50% better than our 13th forward at 100%? My answer is always no. But then again, who am I, right? That is just an opinion at the end of the day. Who the hell am I? So regardless, it's worked out to where here Florida is back in the Eastern Conference Final for the third year in a row. Like, it's just still crazy, and everything aside, like, it is still, like, if you can take out like fandoms and personal biases or whatever, it is just really damn cool for a team like Florida, who again suffered for so long of just not being able to do anything, to see them have their shit together to this extent. And then the flip side is obviously Leafs and Panthers. And, I'm recording this a few hours after Game 7, where the Leafs were embarrassed on home ice for the second time in 3 games. And it's like, you have the Florida Panthers of having their shit together. And it's like, you want to say for the Leafs, like, oh man, it went to Game 7. It could have gone either way. But you could see just the drastic difference between those teams, especially in those clutch situations of, having to put your foot down and win the damn thing. And Florida is just still on an entirely different level. And it puts the Leafs now in a scenario where you just have to wonder what the hell's next. Because how many kicks at the can you have with this version of the Maple Leafs and the core? And it's just like, man, like games 5 and 7, you lost by a combined score of 12-2 on home ice. Like, you're done. Like, you can't have that outlook of like, oh, hey, we were close. We were 1 win away. It's like, no, you were close in that regard, but in a general sense, like, nah, you weren't close though, were you? You just weren't. And, again, like, looking forward to the Leafs now and what they have to do. Well, first and foremost, Brendan Shanahan should probably be out the door, right? He has been, not even probably, that's just me trying to be nice. Brendan Shanahan should be out the door, right? I think that's where it starts. He is a guy that has been there for 12, 13 years now. And on one hand, you could say, to his credit, he has stuck with the quote-unquote Shana plan, right? And that is commendable in one way, saying these are the guys that I think can do it. On the other hand, it has absolutely sunk the Toronto Maple Leafs, because you are looking at the key members of this core that unfortunately have repaid that belief from Brendan Shanahan with nothing, with 2 series wins in this time. And it feels like it does have to get worse before it gets better. At the very least, it has to get different before it gets better. You've already changed coaches from frickin' Randy Carlyle to Mike Babcock, Sheldon Keefe. I feel like there's something. Let's see. Toronto Maple Leafs head coaches. Who am I forgetting? I feel like I'm forgetting. Obviously not talking about Craig Berube as the current head coach. Peter Horacek is the interim coach. There we go. That's what I was forgetting in 2015. Can you believe I forgot Peter Horacek? How? How could I possibly? You've had the head coaches. You've had the GMs of Lou Lamoriello and Kyle Dubas and now Brad Treliving. Like, eventually something has to change, right? And that's a similar conversation to what Bruins fans are having in regards to, okay, you've changed the head coaches. Nothing happened this season, right? You fired Jim Montgomery. Wow, shocker. That didn't magically fix everything. Fucking of course it didn't magically fix anything. They haven't changed GMs, right, with Don Sweeney. He has been there for a decade now. And, in that time for the Bruins, like you're talking about, dating back to freaking Claude Julien and like all the different coaches that they've had, right? But similar with the Bruins is the fact that, like, okay, well, Don Sweeney Cam Neely hasn't changed. And for certain teams to have success, it's like eventually you need to have a different vision, get a different voice at, a different captain at the helm of this thing, not literally on the ice, although that might not hurt either. But it's like you need to get somebody else trying to lead the way here and fly this damn plane. And it just feels like Brendan Shanahan's time is up in that regard. Like, valiant efforts. I don't think he went about it in the worst way necessarily. You know, building through the draft, stuff like that. Unfortunately for you, the players that you ended up having to hitch your wagon to were Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, and of course, like signing John Tavares. And that is, of course, not to say that they are bad players, right? Because they're not. But in a playoff scenario, the mesh doesn't work, as people have said, right? And then you look at this offseason in terms of like, okay, well, Shanahan's got to go. And then you look at the roster itself. Austin Matthews isn't going anywhere unless there is some crazy video game-like scenario where he waives his no-movement clause and agrees to be traded. And that is also the type of player that no GM wants to potentially trade, because that could so easily backfire on the Leafs. Of course, there is a scenario where Austin Matthews were to go somewhere else and do incredibly well, potentially even be a part of a Stanley Cup winning team, right? That is very much a possibility. Of course it is. William Nylander just re-signed. No movement clause. It's the same scenario for him. Pretty straightforward. How many assists did this guy have last year? 18? Again, normally this is some stuff that I do off stream, but it was like, screw it, whatever. I have a lot to talk about this time, so why not? If it was 18 assists last year, maybe he can get 22 this year. Then, of course, you have John Tavares. Dude, the fact that his 7-year contract with the Leafs is done blows my mind. We have already seen the entirety of the John Tavares contract after leaving the New York Islanders, not going to the Sharks, and signing with the hometown Leafs. That is crazy to me. Now, does John Tavares stay? Much more likely, I would say. Much more likely. But it would obviously have to be discounted. And the thing is, he is going to be 35, if I'm not mistaken, by the start of next season. He is now at that point where he has a decision to make. Are you Shane Doan? Are you going to potentially go down with the ship and just keep trying to win with an organization that you love, that you grew up rooting for, the bed sheets and all, right? Are you going to stay and try like hell to win the Stanley Cup in Toronto, which is what you've dreamed of your whole life? Or are you going to be one of those players that says, oh shit, I'm running out of time, I'm 35, let me sign for dirt cheap with a contender and try to get a Stanley Cup? That's what he has to decide this offseason. That's not to say the Leafs could win the Cup next year. They really could. If they make the right moves this offseason and they do what they need to do in terms of changing the culture of the team and building more around the Craig Berube style. And look, I've given Craig Berube a lot of shit in my time on this platform because I still found it rich that in 2019, you know, the Blues were, and anybody that played the Blues will tell you, like, they were playing Florida Panther hockey, if you catch my drift. And he had the gall to complain about the officials. I just thought it was hilarious. But if you build the right team around Craig Berube and get players that'll play that style, that will play, you know, that all-in playoff style of hockey, the Maple Leafs could win the Cup as soon as next year. I truly believe that. Is John Tavares that type of player? Is he going to want to do that? What is he going to want to do? Again, he needs to make that decision. He said as much in the post game that I want to be a Leaf next year. Who did not say that was Mitch Marner. Buddy is so out the door, it's not even funny, right? Like he's gone. He is gone. And it's still like genuinely surprising to me. Like, I guess I can understand turning down like Columbus, as was rumored, right? Or pretty much all but confirmed, like in terms of, before he signed the extension with the Leafs and everything like that. But turning down Carolina and, a deal that would have sent Mikko Rantanen to the Leafs, turning down Carolina, it's just surprising that he would have elected to do that in the first place, unless he was just like, no, I'm comfortable here. We might as well go for it one more time. And if I'm going to leave, I want, the next jersey I play for to be 100% my decision. It's kind of what it sounds like, right? But you could just tell in the emotions, the way that he talked after the press conference, dude, he's gone. And I don't see too many Leafs fans that are upset about that likely reality. And Mitch Marner's been the lightning rod of hate for a while now, and it's likely the right time for that separation to happen. Again, I don't think too many Leafs fans are going to be upset. And then, Mitch Marner's another one of those type of players that can go to a different team, and he, depending on where he signs, man, he could have playoff success very, very quickly. It's just obvious where he was, it wasn't a good fit. Again, where do I think he's going to end up? I think you're looking at somewhere like Anaheim, probably Chicago, right? I mean, Chicago is going to be very, very desperate to keep Connor Bedard happy. Guy's a competitor, doesn't want to be on a garbage team. The only reason why he's on Chicago is because they had to be a garbage team to tear it down. Or unless, of course, you believe that the lottery was rigged, in which case, I mean, hey, who's to say? Am I right? Who's to say? Just got to throw that in there just to upset Chicago fans. Why not? Why not? But yeah, it's still just crazy to think about all of these, just all of these attempts. And it's still like that core just could not break through. And this is the time where it feels like prior losses was like, God damn it, can you live up to your potential? And what I've seen from a lot of Leafs fans in the aftermath, friends of mine, stuff like that, it's not the, God damn it, why can't they live up to their potential? It's, oh, this is their ceiling. I think that's what clicked after a loss like this. And, that's likely to happen after you've played a team like the Florida Panthers, who have been to back-to-back Cup finals, have, of course, won the most recent Stanley Cup, is, that's the litmus test. That is the team where you say, man, if we can beat this team, we can beat anybody. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it last year. They couldn't do it this year. Yes, it went to 7, but again, it is just unlikely in general that the Leafs are going to be able to beat the Florida Panthers in their current form. So it's a good thing that, like, hey, yeah, Mitch Marner's out the door, right? At least there's a major change instead of the bottom 6 changing. And it's like, oh, well, now it's this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. It's like, that's Nick Foligno. It's like a major change at the top needed to happen. It has happened. I could really, if I were a Leaf fan, only view it as a positive. Something needed to change, and one way or another, it's going to change. It's just a matter of how much is it going to change, right? That's where it's at right now. But yeah, Tavares, 50-50, right? Marner, he's absolutely gone. And rightfully so. I mean, again, like just the lack of performance and everything like that. You know, he wears a lot of it. Matthews is now getting quite a bit of focus, and rightfully so. We'll see what happens from there. And then, of course, the thing is you want to say, like, oh, man, well, the good thing is, like, they're going to have cap space. And it's true. Like, between, Tavares and Marner, like, you're getting about $22 million with cap space. But then there's the element of how much is Matthew Nye is going to get paid. And the answer is probably a lot. From the looks of it. Like, Leafs fans can never not be put in a position where they have to stress about a contract for a younger player. It's been a freaking decade of it, man. Let's be honest. From the moment that William Nylander was drafted, it's like, oh, shit, he's good. Oh, God, well, what's he going to want? How much is he going to sign for? And then that just continued with Marner and Matthews, right? Matthew Nyes is going to get a lot of money. He is going to get a lot of money this year. And rightfully so. It shouldn't be so much that it won't completely neutralize like what the Leafs are going to be able to do from a financial standpoint of being able to be like, okay, we freed up this money. Now it's just a matter of like, are they going to spend it wisely? And that is a whole nother question, right? And I think that comes down to, is Brendan Shanahan is he still the guy? Like Brad Treliving's the GM, but again, a lot of times, like GMs are, set upon the course to build the team in the image that the higher ups are looking for, right? Not to say, like, as a Bruins fan, that Don Sweeney doesn't get a rightful amount of hate for some of the decisions. Nikita Zadorov, for example, getting the contract that he has, but also, that Cam Neely loves to build a hockey team like that, and the people above Cam Neely love to have the hockey team known as the Boston Bruins built in that physical, big, bad Bruin style, right? Like, they just can't let go of that. Can't let go of it because, hey, when it works, it works. In the playoffs, unless you run into St. Louis, who did it better, or Chicago, or whoever else, for that matter. But you get the point. Like, it's just, I don't know. The whole Leafs thing is it's just crazy to me. It is just crazy to me that, again, they fell short like this, and now it's a matter of what significant changes are going to happen, because that scenario of running it back, it's like, how? Like, how on earth would the scenario work to where Mitch Marner is a Leaf next season? It just doesn't seem possible. If it happens, it's because Brendan Shanahan is still at the helm and refuses to let go of the idea of that version of the team working out. I mean, I guess that's how it could happen, right? But that's really the only scenario in which I could see it happening. So, like I said, it's been a crazy postseason. And the Leafs result just kind of stands out the most, right? Like, obviously, it's a result for the Florida Panthers. They won that series. They're an amazing team. But every single year, I can remember saying, like, oh, man, going to be a crazy offseason for this team. And, yeah, no, it is going to be a crazy offseason, especially for a team like the Leafs, who have, I think the best way to say it is just a lot of soul-searching to do. A lot of soul-searching. I think getting that puck control up there is necessary for a lot of these veterans. We're going to have to do that. I don't even know if Ryan Precht is going to be our coach. I agree that we're not going to make the playoffs, buddy. Don't worry about it. You're fine there. We'll double-check the coach and all that in a moment. But just trying to think if there was anything else to mention in regards to Toronto, just aside from, like, I've seen a lot of, like, negative sentimentality towards Leafs fans and the venting. And it's like, I agree, like, in the run of play, like, throwing jerseys on the ice, throwing a fucking beer onto the ice. It's like, it is dangerous for the players. Like, have more respect for the players than that. But the whole idea of like, oh, you shouldn't boo the players or whatever. It's like, it's not so much that they're, the Leafs fans were, just booing the players. It's like those boos are directed at management. Those boos are directed at the people who have been building these teams that cannot get the job done. And I don't view it as a bad thing for a fan base to essentially send the message of like, this isn't good enough. We demand more. Really any fan base. It doesn't matter if the team is good or bad, but especially for the Leafs organization, having the money that they have, the resources that they have, like, there's no excuse other than not doing a good enough job. There's no excuse for an organization like the Leafs to just be stuck in this mid-tier when they have those crazy amount of resources and everything. So I think it's more than fair for the fan base to be able to go out and fucking boo and show their displeasure with what's going on, because why would anybody be happy? Why would anybody be happy watching that team falter again? Like, no one's going to be happy in those circumstances. And be like, oh, let's put on a brave face as a fan base and say, oh, the boys tried real hard. It's like, did they though? Did they? When the scores are that lopsided? Like, did they really? So I get for some people it's going to be a matter of like, oh, well, hey, it's, fun to shit on Leafs fans or whatever the hell. Like, I get that. But at the same time, it's like I or anybody else really would be lying if we were to say like, oh, we wouldn't do that if we were in that situation. Like, we'd be classier fans. It's like, bullshit. Bullshit, you would. You would be just as frustrated to have gone through the nonsense, really, that Leafs fans have gone through over the past 20 years, right? More so, really, but especially like, post 05 lockout, like you end up on the backside of that after, you make the Eastern Conference Final in 2002, and you start to think like, okay, post lockout, maybe this team will find a way to do what they have to do. And then, of course, they were bad for a long time. Like, this resentment, this frustration of that fan base didn't just start overnight. It's not like, oh, it's this entitlement or something like that. Like, no, it's a passionate fan base that is sick and tired of watching their team underperform. Like, that's going to happen with anybody. That's going to happen with any fan base, So, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too easy on Leafs fans. Who's to say? But again, just a crazy result and set of circumstances and crazy off season upcoming. But let's see, to focus in on this, we need ourselves a goalie coach. I feel like there was something else too in regards to that. I don't even remember. I think in conclusion, I'm happy the Bruins have will have an extra first round pick from the Florida Panthers once, Brad Marchand gets that 50% of games mark, which will happen barring any sort of crazy injury. The playoffs in general have been sick, and the Leafs are they're the Leafs, man. That's all you can say. They are the Toronto Maple Leafs, for better or worse, and certainly more often than not, it is for worse, at least if you are a fan of that particular team. But we'll see what happens, right? We'll see. But yeah, from here, in terms of the playoffs, like I said, man, that Final Four is sick. You don't have an underdog team in the mix, right? Like, heading into this season, all four of these teams, like, this was the expectation. Like, you need to be competing for the Stanley Cup by the middle of May, or it's a failure of a season. And, well, shit, here they are, right? Where they need to be. That's the beautiful thing about it, though, right? Only one team can win. All right, let's see. God, so many Swedish scouts, Russia. Honestly, that's pretty good. I think we're looking pretty good. So I want to sim this season. And like I said, I don't really expect us to make the playoffs or anything. Top line's good in terms of the abilities. The defense is not very good. We'll take the Wotherspoon second line option. That's looking a little bit better. Is there any way to... Yeah, there's really no way to avoid that. So I'm not surprised. None of the coaches were that good, though, right? Like, we eventually need an A-plus level coach. But let's go ahead and see how this season plays out for us. And yeah, we'll take it from there. But, in regards to the Leafs, something else that came to mind, the idea of, like, mentioning the Florida Panthers style of hockey. It's like, well, then there's the Anthony Stolarz side of things. Like, I saw some people say, like, Joseph Wall, like, if the Leafs had stellar, like, I thought Joseph Wall was fine. I thought he was fine. In the NHL, you don't need the best goaltender in the world to win. You simply don't. You look at some of the more recent Cup winners, right? Like the 2022 Colorado Avalanche, Darcy Kemper, right? Not saying Darcy Kemper's bad, but is Darcy Kemper, like, he has never and will likely never be in the top 5, let alone top 3, top 2, top 1 for goalie situation. That's not going to happen. Same thing with Vegas winning the Stanley Cup with Adin Hill. And then you have teams like the New York Rangers who couldn't get it done, having Henrik Lundqvist. You have the Montreal Canadiens who couldn't get it done with Carey Price, Nashville, and Pekka Rinne. Just the freaking Bruins couldn't get it done with Tuukka Rask. Oh, it's his fault for 2013. No, it isn't. The defense died in front of him. It's his fault for 2019. No, it is not. But, that's just for the people who listen to freaking local Boston sports media and somehow believe everything they say in regards to Tuukka Rask is the devil. But, like, Joseph Wall did well enough that, the Leafs could have won. Like, obviously it's tough for him because, put it this way. He appeared in all 7 games of that series, right? Like, obviously he comes in for relief for Anthony Stolarz in game 1. And then Matt Murray got 13 minutes of game time as well. Joseph Wall, I'm looking at it right now, finished that series with an .886 save percentage. Is that good? No. Is it awful? It's not great. But you look at the circumstances of that, like, man, there were 2 different games, and granted, he wasn't in net for all of them, but there were 2 different games, 5 and 7, where the Florida Panthers put up freaking 6 goals. So the fact is, right, like, if Joseph Long, of course, it was an empty netter for Brad Marchand in game 7, stuff like that. But that whole idea of, like, it was Joseph Wall, like, man, it was the team in front of him because Joseph Wall was doing well. It's just that with the team in front of him, you can only hold on for so long when the puck is consistently in your zone. Like, man, all you have to do is look at the first 10 minutes of Game 7. The Leafs didn't even have a shot. They battled back in the second half of the first period, and then second period onward, they got shit on. Would Anthony Stolarz have been the difference? I can't imagine so, just because the team in front was so mentally compromised. Let's go with that. But do I genuinely think that, like, a team could win the Stanley Cup with Joseph Wall or Anthony Stolarz as their goalie? Yes, I do believe that, because that is where the NHL is at this point. Is there are not too many truly terrible goaltenders in the NHL right now. And again, with respect to Darcy Kemper, with respect to Adin Hill, again, you don't need the best goalie in the league to be able to win the Stanley Cup. You just don't. That's just not where things are right now for the league. So, think for Toronto, it's just a matter of, man, you got to figure out the nonsense in front, right? Because, hey, you look at the Winnipeg Jets, they did have the best goaltender in the league. And it didn't matter, right? It did not matter. You look at those goalie, you look at certain goalie stats and everything from the regular season. And, you just end up kind of scrolling through the numbers for certain players. And it's just like, again, there aren't too many goalies that were truly dreadful. And there was like 100 or so goalies that played this year. Am I going to sit here and be like, again, respect to someone like Hunter Shepard, who was, a really good AHL goalie? Are the Washington Capitals, if you put Hunter Shepard in net for the Capitals, are they likely to go all the way? Probably not. But you put Hunter Shepard in goal for the Florida Panthers. I mean, they're a playoff team at least, I would still think, just based off the strength of the roster. That was statistically the worst goalie in the NHL this season. You can do something like Hockey Reference has like point shares and stuff like that. Worst goal saved, worst goal saved above expected this year was Georgiev at a negative 33.1, right? If you want to say, okay, that's a bad goalie, cool. But, again, there aren't too many guys that were dreadful, right? If you look at an even rating, guess who had a 0.0 flat even rating in terms of a goal saved above expected in the regular season this year? Calvin Pickard, who put Edmonton on his back when Stuart Skinner wasn't doing so hot, and then Skinner got his shit together in the second round. So it's just one of those things, right? Where it's like, do I believe that Cam Talbot, Jordan Binnington had one of he had a 0.9 goal saved above expected this season. Do I believe Jordan Binnington can win a Stanley Cup? Boy, do I. I've seen it in person. So that said, we have 2 games left in this regular season. Does not look like we're going to make the playoffs, but 21-21-3 is actually pretty damn good, but also incredibly harmful because we're still not good enough yet we're too good to consistently finish towards the top of the draft picks and the lottery and stuff like that. So this is actually detrimental, meaning this team is in a very, very bad spot. Yeah, we're too good to be miserable, and we're too bad to actually be good. And we're going to have to deal with the consequences of that for a while, I would say. Let's see here how many teams have played the full 47. We'll see how the regular season winds up. I think we are in the clear. No, we're not. The scheduling in this alternate universe is very weird, but here we go. We do have the final results. So Atlanta was the only team out of our division to make the playoffs. We finished in 4th. East Division, the Montreal Victory, the only team to make it there. That was a pretty competitive division. Only 62 points for Ottawa at the bottom. Central Division, Saskatoon ran away with it. Look at Albuquerque. I mean, just 13 wins, right? We're far ahead of them at this point. The West Division, Honolulu, Burnaby, and Seattle all made the playoffs. The Seattle Stallions missed out by 1 point. And then on the other side, Florida Panthers, of course, make the playoffs, as do the Peg City Penny Pinchers. East Division, the Hartford Bambies have made it. The Toronto Scepters were atrocious. Central Division, the Houston Sharpshooters. And in the West, the San Francisco Starfleet and the Seattle Magicians. So top team was Saskatoon. Seattle was the top team. Both Seattle teams that didn't make the playoffs were the top teams in terms of points that didn't make it. But case in point, we finished 34th out of 48 teams. We're going to have a rough time kind of filling out this roster, especially too, Toronto and Anchorage, both on just 37 points. That is going to be very difficult to out-tank at this point when we have somebody like Pete Walters, who scored 38 goals in 47 games, had 64 points, Lundberg looked great and has developed tremendously well in terms of abilities. I mean, good Lord. Liam Pugh as well, looking great. Like, that top line was awesome. Ethan Belchetz was very good this year. He has Big Tipper as well. We got a couple of people with Big Tipper, which is great to have on a team like this. Even Pekka Salonen, 31 points. Damn good. Maloney is up there. Maloney, Wotherspoon, Dowell, we have defensemen that can put up points. And Maloney has third eye as well. So, we need to be able to fill out the bottom six a bit. It's going to be difficult to do through the draft. We are going to need to find some steals. But the core of this team is decent. Goaltending as well. Buckley over a 900 save percentage. Good things could still be on the way, but we are going to need some luck in the future. And, of course, Austin Matthews getting it done in the regular season, but can he get it done in the playoffs? Well, the answer is so far not really. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention. For Austin Matthews, he is going to be haunted. Absolutely haunted by his quotes at the end of the game. The line of, and I'm paraphrasing here. Let me see if I can get the exact quote, because it's worth mentioning the exact quote. For Austin Matthews, it was, quote, "I thought we had too many passengers," says Leafs captain Austin Matthews. My brother in Christ, you were the passenger in that series. You have consistently been the passenger. Like, you have the C. The C stands for conductor of the train. But you were a passenger. And that is a big part of the reason, if not the biggest reason, that the Leafs are out now. That quote is going to haunt him for a very, very long time. And I had this conversation on stream. And I'm intrigued at, and it's a shame I'm phrasing this at the end of the video, but you know what? This is for the real ones that were looking forward to this. How many captains in the NHL would you take over Austin Matthews solely in terms of leadership quality? I'm not talking about individual skill level or point production, because we know that Austin Matthews is one of the best players in the world when he is on his game, which more often than not is only in the regular season. And then he has a quote like this. The leadership quality just does not seem to be there, because a leader doesn't throw out a quote like that. They just don't. Like, it comes off as him throwing his team under the bus rather than taking accountability, right? If the quote is, "We had too many passengers, myself chief amongst them, because I'm the captain of this team and I didn't do enough," that's taking responsibility. You look at the list of captains in the NHL, and from that leadership standpoint, there's quite a few guys ahead of Austin Matthews that I would want for my franchise. Guys who aren't even necessarily as skilled, not even close. But there are still players that I would absolutely prefer to have on my roster over Austin Matthews, at least in terms of having that C on their chest. And it's not just older guys like Sidney Crosby, Anze Kopitar. You're talking about a Sasha Barkov, who's only 2 years older, and look at what Barkov has been able to do with the Florida Panthers. I got to be honest, you're talking about somebody like Nick Suzuki, I think demonstrates better leadership qualities as the captain of the Montreal Canadiens. There's quite a few people on that list. I'm intrigued to know other people's thoughts as well, but yeah, I don't know. I might have to make that a tier list or something like that. We'll see what happens in the future. We'll see what happens in the future as well with this series. I want to thank all of you for tuning in today. I will try to be consistent if I can be. until tomorrow, and another draft until tomorrow. God, I wish. Remember when daily uploads happened? We have another draft coming up. That'll be fun. See you in like 17 days or something. I don't know.